Hello, everyone, and welcome to yet another Galactic Interstellar Council after show. We're here with Bjorn Ragnar's son again, and we are actually doing an after show on a very poignant topic that is linked into the subject you just heard on our YouTube, the pole shift. And this is actually something I've wanted to touch on for some time. They've wanted to touch on for some time. And this was introduced much further back into the Galactic Interstellar Council episodes in a minor degree. And this has become its own topic now. And the topic is the misnomers surrounding DNA updates, upgrades, and cosmic codes. And this also falls under the upgrades and updates of the central sun, which we were discussing before, which there are some truths to it, and the truths to the different times of year that are more powerful, like the Samhain, which would be Halloween, fall going into Halloween and going up to the solstice. But this I find very, very fascinating, because this is what we were told months ago, and we can rehash this with the questioning. This is actually quite fascinating. Some of the narrative you've been hearing about different DNA upgrades, and you've heard me talk about how there can be a DNA upgrades, how there can be a changing of the energy centers, how there can be a switch over from carbon-based to crystalline. The carbon-based to crystalline is not necessarily false. That is actually true. But what is your DNA getting encoded with, and how and what and why? These are things I know. Sometimes I overanalyze things, and some people say I should take things on faith. But with this, I felt I had to look into this just a slight bit deeper. And also knowing that sometimes the chakra network was false, and underneath that was the octave network, which was the true energy centers, like the true energy centers of the earth, where you heard Ragnar talking about the different notches. People have those, but there's far less of those energy centers than what would be the 12 chakras. And you heard us earlier on in Interstellar Council and the lifting saying it was linked into the 12 strands of DNA. I've since had to re-question this particular narrative on the misnomer surrounding DNA upgrades, and also different codes on different things that have either upgraded us or downgraded us, such as mind control and the like. Months ago, this was brought up in a conversation we had with Elaine and Vessa when they showed up. They said you might want to re-question the updates concept. You might want to re-question the upgrades concept. They basically were saying that sounds more like a computer to me than anything else. And I got to thinking about that ever since then. I've never forgotten this. And how is this linked into the pole shift? It is linked in because they're saying that this will upgrade people into this thought renaissance, or into this other higher energetic state, going to 5D. I've never bought completely the 5D thing, but is the shift where the earth is carrying everybody with. I've had my doubts with this, because knowing now what we know about the pole shift, you also have to throw into question the updates and upgrades conversation as well. So they're kind of linked at the hip like this. And I got to thinking about this over the many months. What exactly would you be upgrading? What would be upgrading? What would be downgrading? What would be changing? What would be retracting away? And again, I might be overthinking it. But with this topic, people always also say, oh, you're getting more codes from the central sun. Yeah, that might be true. You are getting different upgrades at different times of year. It's more energetic and is beginning to unlock things about yourself, your own psyche, your own soul. I can understand that part. But and also the DNA is changing. Does our DNA change slowly over a period of time? Yes, it does. Does it unlock? Do things unlock within you that are within your genetic memory? Absolutely so. But this can go positive and negative, where you can get rid of the viruses in your DNA that come from the ancestry and your past lives that have been in your genetic memory, or you can become the embodiment of those viruses. Adolf Hitler is a prime example of that. Where he became the embodiment of this. And we've also said on past conversations that if people become an embodiment of a concept, and it is more considered to be an abomination of nature than an upgrade or an ascended principle. And this is what was shown to us. Some people think that might be going down the dark road a little bit, but this was a conversation that we had, at least I'm thinking, a month ago, from this point of this recording. These are being done 11/26/22. This was roughly, I believe, about a month ago. We had this conversation, but this is where this type of conversation is yet again touching on, mixed with pole shift ideology and mixed with Nibiru wisdom, and I put that in quotes, and also the misnomers surrounding these upgrades and updates. But before we really get into any real in-depth into that, I opened this circle to any true benevolence that is now present, which there is some true benevolence present. And I also asked for benevolent source creator for the protection of the information coming in, the protection of the channel, and the protection of the rooms that we are all three currently occupying. May request time stays appropriate is for so almost all sessions. Next break. There we go. And I feel like getting a little more solid in here. There's far less interference. So I don't know who wishes to start this ball rolling. Bjorn or Joanna, did you want to get to?
Well, it's interesting because Chris just said a bunch of things that I've never heard him say before. So I know, we don't always do these conversations having this long pre-conversation to be in sync or to do whatever. So I found it very interesting what he was saying, because my thought, so it's going to be an interesting conversation. I can't wait to hear it, because my thought processes maybe are a little bit more simplistic than yours. Okay. So, my thoughts have to do more with just supportive energies. Mm-hmm. So when I think of we've talked a lot about getting false downloads and mm-hmm. whatever, because you're just susceptible to bring in, and you're not false downloads, then you get right, and things are happening. But I always have believed that there is something to, so it'll be interesting to say that there are supportive energies out there, either being streamed through the galactic central sun, or again in mm-hmm. parts of the, as we traverse on the earth in our solar system through around the galactic central sun, maybe certain energy pockets that we pass through that provide a potential opportunity, if a soul wants to take it, that's more supportive for a different frequency to be attained within a person, that then allows for more experiences or more communication that brings in more information. Mm-hmm. Not that the energy coming in actively changes you, but it provides an opportunity and an easier way for you to get within a certain frequency to grow if you choose to grow. So I find it interesting, because I hadn't heard you say that before. And again, I don't have no idea. It feels right what I just said. It just feels right what I said to myself, and I certainly am open.
But yes, there are blockages to that have been known to block the oversoul from certain information, and also the mantling between the avatar and the oversoul. That part's still true.
Oh yeah. So I'm just really interested. Again, I think this is a great conversation to hear others' perspectives on it, because I always think of it as it's our personal choice and personal responsibility to grow versus, and so the whole concept of everyone poof being on the same page doesn't make sense to me, because you may provide an environment, right, that you could walk into, you feel really comfortable in, like a sweat lodge, let's say, and you're like, oh, this is great, and I go into it and I'm like, well, let me go get my first shower, because I'm not interested. This is too much. But the energies are there to support if you have the desire to use it. So to me, it's a very interesting conversation. I can't wait to hear. That's really all I wanted to say, is that I really am very interested in what's going to be said today. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I heard while you were talking, I heard Isaac blurt out, "Yeah, remember, work with the pain sticks." So he's making fun of that. But it's like if anybody watches Star Trek: Next Generation, they're going to know what he's talking about. Mm-hmm. But in the early years, so that is actually a great reference. I won't go too far into that, but go watch it. You'll see what I mean. So Bjorn, did you want to start this off?
I would just add that I think that the connection of the different pieces as well as the narrative to how these pieces connect, I think we're going to have some discussion around connecting some of the pieces of the puzzle that I'm excited as well to understand and learn about. But I believe that the codes, as you're talking about, have very much a connection to our DNA and our abilities. And I think that the codes, like you say, Joanna, they very similar to how a computer, you could get a code update, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's either turned on or that it is actually you're have a desire or a need to use it. These all maybe come into play when you want it or you're about to turn it on, and I think that kind of understanding between, as we were talking about the central sun to the sun, I find it very curious to, there's an obvious connection to the body. We collect vitamin D from the sun, and somehow we're able to disperse the other radiation that we're not needing with that, but able to collect some things that actually are nutrient to our bodies. That's just what is in the known. So what is the unknown part of it that is what I think we're all very curious about, because we know that there's so much that we don't know and that science does not tell us, as they are just in the infancy of really an understanding of the world, because the whole quantum world is just starting to be discovered. And it's a realization of that there is a lot of things that happen in the quantum space that is really actually affecting all material, including our bodies.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. Not that these things aren't having an effect. It's what that effect is, where they said, oh, people eventually will be on the same page. Now, even if the mind control stuff was turned off today or tomorrow, the most that would happen is some people would be like, okay, why did I say that thing that I said? Or why did I do that thing that I did? But it doesn't mean it would happen to everybody. And it doesn't mean that everybody is in this mass awakening or mass ascension, or this event that they're talking about. That's what they've linked these upgrades to, is an event. And what there's a good side and a bad side. You have the good side that, of course, the sun gives you nutrients. It empowers you like how a plant would. And you do start to access more parts of yourself because it is more empowered. It's more lit up, so to speak. Then you have the AI component to this that is basically trying to give you codes you don't need. Prime example is when we were around several years ago around the solar eclipse. That time, this is when we first learned this. This is when one of the first areas of this came in, and then Elaine and Bessa hit on a little bit later. But this, when we were around the eclipse, everybody was kind of encouraged to kind of soak up everything from the eclipse. There were a lot of codes with this. Well, some people reported to me that they felt like crap afterwards. And I was like, okay, what's to this? Well, what causes a solar eclipse? The moon. We were just talking about the moon. What's the moon? It is also the eyeball that empowers essentially the binary network, which then grounds to, which was originally the Unisphere in 1964, I believe, and they turned on the binary network. It was the as above, so below for the mind control that arcs to the 5G network. What would that do if it were blocking the sun eclipse or blocking the sun from doing things? It would add in a little bit of its own negative coding to go with the positive coding of some of the eclipse, and what you have in that, a chaotic soup that would make people feel horrible. And people have been led to believe that when you feel horrible, that you're on your way to ascending or something like that. Yes, is there inner shadow work that you have to do? That is basically no walk in the park, that you feel horrible doing that. Yeah, that's part of evolving and grounding to your I am presence here and mantling the oversoul. What I'm getting at is, when everybody was encouraged to take that in, it then created this weird conflict within their coding. And what I ended up having to do was basically telling everybody to revoke the codes that did not serve them in the moment from that eclipse and any informations therein. And when that happened, and when I say keep the things that serve you in the moment, from the eclipse, it actually started to self-correct because people en masse had agreed to just take it all in. It didn't matter if they were doing it in a scientific way, spiritual way, didn't matter. The religious way did not matter one iota. We were taking it all in. And what was happening was there was this fundamental change that was happening within them that was connecting them to something that should not have been there. The current thing with I won't even say this on the after show, but the events of 2020 were also a prime example of this. Whereas you had certain substances put within you that also started to alter the coding in a particular way and change people's personalities either one way or not at all. Depending on what genomic sequences they had, or depending on their resiliency of co-creation, of either co-creating a dud or co-creating some transmutated technique of that substance. So with that, this is what I personally have run into. I know they were hinting at also the different upgrades people would get. And also this goes to the term uploading and downloading. You hear me use this a lot, like either false downloads or real ones. Even though it's easier for people to understand, I put it in computer vernacular. Whereas you are getting something from either higher self, oversoul, or some other set of beings or a being, and you're downloading it, unpacking it, and bringing it here, and it's coming through a thread that way. One could argue that getting the false downloads, is overloading the neocortex and distracting people away from true benevolent downloads. What is the source of this? We found this from several months back too. There are these metal spheres that are in space that are generating what people think are these positive cosmic waves that are causing chaos down here. It's like, oh yeah, it's like a forest fire. It has to burn and then restart, essentially, or culling. It has to then restart. That's completely incorrect. They want people to co-create this. These waves are not the things that are coming from the central sun or our sun. These are these sickly like waves that are bombarding the planet, and it is essentially arcing through the moon and our 5G network to cause a lot of mind control and chaos. And these are what some of these people are picking up on, this weird compression that is taking place. And also the earth is fighting back in some ways, and there are other energies and shift energies that are fighting back in certain ways. You have also rogue telepathic activity that's going on, and you have all these other dimensional energies that are going on. I call this the chaotic soup. You have solar winds and solar energies from the central sun and our own in there. That's the chaotic soup at its finest. The misnomer surrounding all this is that you're getting an upgrade from some of these cosmic rays. This is not necessarily true. Sometimes this is opening your DNA up to have another being step in. This is essentially the same as in the Witcher myth and lore, where they go through the trial of the grasses, where they open the DNA up to mutagens. It's something very similar where certain codes are introduced to where it opens you up to where another being can supplant your own consciousness. This is part of the Orion agenda and not an upgrade agenda. Also, this falls into the transhumanistic agenda as well, saying, oh, this is an upgrade for humanity. Think along those lines. There are a lot of positive things. Like I said before, I'm not trying to be a Debbie Downer here, but there's a lot of positive things, but there's a lot of misnomers surrounding this. And do not carte blanchely just accept. You have to discern, as we always say. You have to use your utmost discernment when coming across these things. Only take on the things that are true and benevolent, only things that you need currently in the current moment, and discard the rest. This is something that needed to be said. Now, is the DNA being upgraded? That happens all the time. This has happened through history. Whatever hits someone's genome, the genome adapts. This is why it's hard to believe that it would be a mass awakening, because every person is different. Even some of the more awake people still have their own different genomic sequences, have a different set of combinations that those abilities have come through, either through their family lineage or viruses in the DNA that they have to purge, shadow work that they have to conduct through their soul history, or where they are at mentally and energetically with even some of the simplest misnomers and miscalculations and different concepts that are out there. I will use one example. I will not go completely in depth. I will not do this. I'm not going to become Rain Man Ragnar. Okay. But when we did house purgings, we came across religious artifacts that had become dark. People's bias, religious bias, would dictate and say, well, how can this be? This is this. This is the ultimate of protection. This is what I'm trying to get at for this concept too. How can this be? This is the ultimate of this. This is what we've been told. Don't always believe what you've been told. You have to discern that for yourself and discern what is best for you in this particular moment in time. That's where we always say discernment, discernment, discernment. So I don't know if you two have anything else to add before we try to yeah. And yeah, when I started to describe the other thing, Ragnar saw it was in my head. He's like, that did like that. So it's like,
yeah, he's ready to go.
Because I was going to go into a complete, tangent. He's like, like this. So there are three of you here, though. Is Ragnar going to speak again? I know. Yes, Isaac, four of you. Yes, Elena, Vesa, Isaac, about two more over here. I have no idea who you guys are. I'm sorry. I know you're benevolent, but I can't see you properly. So who wants to talk? All four of you can't raise your hand. Okay. I'm aware I've done that before, but we're not doing that now. So which one of you is going to speak? Okay. Vesa, it's going to be you. Okay. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Okay. All right. Yes, Isaac, I understand. All right. Let's see. I figured it was going to be Isaac this time, but okay. But since Elena and Vesa were the ones that brought up the upgrade misnomer to begin with, I think it's perfect. So, not to mention we didn't say certain things given the previous company on these shows. Yes, I understand. Okay, you can talk now. All right. Yes, thank you. She's calling me the anal retentive orator. All right. All right. For God's sakes. All right, let's just get this done. Okay. Through the crystal, please, not my brain. I'm aware it goes through my brain to crystal. Yes. Aside from his let's just say his oration here a moment ago, yes, we are personally happy that this subject has come up. Can you get updates and upgrades in energetics that then change your DNA and bring out more of what you need for your soul? Yes. And that can that come through a chain of events, even tragedy? Yes. Very much like his accident, for instance. Whereas when he came back with more coding, even when he got his knee transplant and the ligaments and tendons therein, did he get codes and information from their previous user? Yes. This was all necessary to bring into the here and now. So one could say, by definition, that is an upgrade or an update. People have added in a lot of the computer vernacular, as he said, to this because of the push towards the transhumanistic movement. Yet there is a good definition for this. But evolving humanity as a whole towards an ascension into 5D thing, complete and utter crap, because it would not happen all at once. People are hoping and have been told that this would happen all at once. Nor would, if the mind control be shut off tomorrow, nor would, as some of the New Age people were hoping, or some of the awake people were hoping, that some people would hang their heads in shame and feel guilty over what they have done to others. No, it does not work this way, folks. Nor, as you've said in the past, nor would there be any vindication in that area. This is also a misnomer. This is a narrative that has been pumped into people's heads, that certain upgrades would then bring the salvation of mankind. That's not necessarily so. Remember, all three of you here today are people that have come in slightly ahead of the curve to do a trailblazing. This does not mean that somebody is more special than the other. Well, maybe in the quoted sense, in some fashions, in some areas. I am joking, mind you. But in this, yes, is there people that help open the door up with different concepts ahead of the curve? Absolutely so. But is there going to be these pre-programmed updates that carry everybody at once into the next stage of evolution? No. Are there those that have crystalline DNA that are carbon crystalline? Yes. Does it mean every single person? No. Those would be some of the trailblazers, even in your ancient history, that have had this happen. Will humanity as a whole have some of these ideas? Yes and no. Some will still carry certain ideas in time and evolve those slowly over time. Our beings such as the Venusians and my own people helping with some of these things in teachings. Yes. Could you consider this an update or an upgrade? Yes, you could say that. But the good thing goes with downloads. When they overload your neocortex, is it really a positive thing? I would have to say no to that. It would disrupt your ability to ground your true information and your true self here. Is he getting good bunches of information all the time? Absolutely so. But can it be inverted by another source, such as artificial intelligence, or some other source telepathically, such as reptilian and the like, to be able to invert it and spout things in a, as Ragnar says, in a Rain Man fashion? Yes. Yes, and I say this playfully, and so does he, but it is more of a concern because there are others that do the same thing. This is where some false channelings come from as well, where everybody takes in all the information and doesn't discern. He is doing the opposite of this, but at the same time, you can refuse a download, just like you can refuse a file being downloaded to your computer. You can refuse an upload, you can refuse a download, you can refuse a bit of information you are looking at. It is not a certainty when it hits that it must be uttered. This is also a falseness of that particular set of narratives that he himself did not know about. This has been presented this way for that reason. Also, with the central sun being in alignment closer to Earth, during your Samhain time frame or Halloween-esque time frame that everybody loves, we do as well. Lena and I do as well, and so does Isaac apparently, because he dresses that way 24/7. But this, well, sort of. But can you get updates or upgrades or updated information about your universe closer at those times of year? Yes, and through your solstice, yes, not as much as Halloween. But does it mean you're automatically going to transform into the Incredible Hulk? No. That is a misnomer. Does your DNA get more charged during that time frame to be more acceptant of the information? Yes. So there are distinctions here. As anal retentive as that sounds, these distinctions needed to be said. We could not have this conversation with the previous occupants of this show. We are very, very thankful that this has changed over. I can go into questions now if you like.
Yeah, I'd like to ask a few questions, and thanks for joining us. Before we get into what the codes ultimately do in your body, I'm curious to understand the different ways that you can get these codes, because it sounds like that some of the codes will come from the central sun. And does that interact? How does that actually work? Does it come directly from the central sun, or is it central sun to our sun and then to ourselves that way? And ultimately, is our solar system spinning around the sun, and then ultimately are we spinning around in the solar system, getting closer to the central sun? And is that in essence what is being called the Great Awakening and part of this transition?
You are correct 100% in this, Bjorn, because the fact is all of this information is everywhere, even on Earth and space. You would say heaven and earth, in different dimensions and the like. Yes, the central sun bringing out information that had happened in the past from your ancient galactic history, which is revving up right now. This is why you're getting more and more truthful information surrounding this. Also, the different beings that inhabit all these different worlds. Every being out there leaves their footprint very much in he calls it the Galactic Keshiks, plural. That's true in a multiversal sense. They leave their footprint and fingerprint behind, even if that culture is no more. It's in an energetic sense, and it also is in a stardust type of sense and a code sense. People are getting the information of all of these different cultures. The New Age movement have applied a certain, how can I put it, pizzazz to it, like it is all holy. Some of it is just information that's passing through what he perceives as a Keshic nodes that are throughout creation. The Galactics at one point did build a universal library that did arc between these benevolent nodes. They weren't always benevolent, mind you. The Orions tried to hijack them at one point, though it could not completely succeed. But these were access points to that information, a technological access point, very much like your stone technology is on Earth. Different cultures had these different things on their different worlds. Even ones that are no more still have some of these different things that look kind of like obelisks. This has been bastardized by your cabal and your government to do mind control and soul trapping, because it's based in the same kind of technology. But as far as a cosmic set of information goes, yes, your planet is being bathed in these positive waves and negative and all of the above that are being bastardized by AI technology, so you get only the junk and the compression. But all of this would definitely pass through the Earth at Keshic on a regular basis. You are getting all of this galactic history and more is coming through creativity. It is coming through dreams. It is coming through from past lives, different regressions. It is coming through your genetic memory. It is coming through all the time. Would this be an instant upgrade? No. It is always flowing and has been happening for some time. You are just adapting to the point where you're able to receive more of these bits of information. And is the central sun at that point more active during that Samhain time? You call it the harvest, but you understand the idea. Yes. And does it go through your sun to yours? Yes, you can say that's a lens. But remember, it is encompassing all of creation, and Earth being on a nexus point, you are getting more and more of that energy. And what that is doing to your genome currently, it is as you're soaking that up, very much like a plant or a flower, it is blooming. This does not necessarily mean a prerequisite to some sort of ascension. This just means you are able to understand certain things better. Does this mean a great awakening or an event? No. Does this mean a thought renaissance, as the dear Lyrans have put it? No, but there would be more of a creativity spark. Somebody would be able to access more of some things from their oversoul and into their avatar, or more of a mantling would take place. Again, different strokes for different folks. This does not necessarily mean everyone would be on the exact same page. That would be asinine. That's more Borg collective type of thinking. And everyone in becoming, one in one collective. You're already one. You're one world. The law of one applies. So why on God's green earth would you want to become one consciousness? You are already that, but you have your own individual higher selves. You have your own individual avatars that have your own individual choices, and you have to learn to work together on your world, you see, to make it better, regardless of what you believe or what field you're working in. Now, this information will come in to help those that are in their own lane. It doesn't mean that everybody's going to believe the same thing across the board or ascend into some 5D nonsensical sense. This is where we're at with those updates and upgrades.
Very interesting. And to clarify, is there multiple ways that you can get codex into your DNA or that change other than just, cosmic rays or the central sun? And it also brings up a second part of that question is, if you're spending more time, let's say outside or in the sun, does that assist in getting those codex?
Yes, absolutely, on both accounts. And there are multiple ways of getting this. It's not just from space, it's even things you look at. What he's fallen into, unfortunately, is when certain downloads are open too much, something he looks at tends to trigger an inverted process of this to where there is no peace involved. And sometimes there's no peace because the brain wants to be on a logical time clock and the soul wants something else. Can there be a conflict there? Yes. This is why it must be in alignment. That's why not all downloads should be accepted. That would be asinine. But in this, sometimes it's things you look at that inspire you. Say if somebody creative went out into nature. And when you're out in nature, you're more receptive to this. Is why I always recommend it. Even though me and Elena are around technology and city structures a lot, we do go in nature a lot as well. And of course, Ragnar is in nature a lot as well. He's in the town of Bedrock at the moment, so to speak, but meaning like Stone Village type of thing. In this, say you went out in nature and you were either a writer or a painter or a sculptor or somebody who did photography or something of that nature. Doing these things, seeing and visualizing the spots where these things can be accomplished, and even the people involved in this, be there a model, be there for painting, photograph, or the model being nature. You are then also upgrading yourself at that time. You are engaging in that side of yourself, fusing soul and avatar, and grounding in that sense and being in that moment. You would call it the moment of non-time. Is this very important? Absolutely. But we also recognize there's times where this cannot be. This was not the conversation that could have been had before, but there are times where you also have to balance work, home life, and all of these creative aspects where it is one flowing manifestation. That is how you ground this, and also times to be in a meditative state, finding all of these things and more. You are gaining these things in each and every one of these moments. You're also sometimes losing and gaining a receptivity amount during the times of great stress, for instance, or great energetic warping. During those times, it is misaligning that lens to try to make it so you are not in access of this anymore. We're not saying you cannot be mad about things. We're not saying you can't be in worry or even fear over certain things. But it's how long you stay there is how long it affects your genomic structure, the receptivity of your soul, and the receptivity of all these codes and codexes around you. They are all around you at all times. They always have been. The earth is not necessarily being upgraded because all of this is all here. Earth is going through a natural process. Of course, technology is fighting that, as was said before, and with ideology and all that fighting this too. But it's a continual process of you being able to access more and more and more. Think about it this way in computer vernacular for a little bit. Say you get a new computer that has more memory and more hard drive space, more disk space, and even in the hard drives that you store things on. If you store a computer almost to its full capacity, does it not slow down? And can it not process things correctly? It is essentially like yourself, where if you take in too much, you cannot process things correctly. Different strokes for different folks and different speeds of processing. This does not make one any lesser than the other or any greater than the other. This is also what some of the metaphysical community has to understand as well, as some of the ones that are expecting this big burst of information that is just as big a lie as, say, the whole mass arrest agenda or narrative, or even some of your financial collapse narrative. It is involved in this, even though there is an entropy. It is not the visible one of the lie that you've been told about it. See the understanding now?
Mm-hmm. It does sound like the codex or perhaps upgrades are available when you do the inner work to be able to accept those. Would that be the case?
Mm-hmm. Yes, but it comes through multiple areas, not just one. And it's just like if I were to say figurehead in religion is the only way to God, so to speak, like some of your church or your priests and whatnot. That's incorrect. They just wanted people to go through them. It is no different than in its regurgitation with the New Age community, where you had to go through one process to get there. It is just as big of a lie. But yes, these things are all over for you to grab at any moment, at any time.
And so the codex really get embedded into your DNA or your genetics, as we talk about. Is there any relation to that with Rh negative blood type, and that has carried on as part of a genetic path? And are we working towards improving those things now, so that when we pass on our genetics to our children and their children, those improvements are going with it?
Absolutely. So, like, if you were to build a psychic skill, for instance, you could pass this on to your children. Just like they always say, improving things improves your line, both ancestry and descendant lineage. That is actually true. It doesn't mean you're going to help the person behind you, mind you. That's a misnomer. You're just taking those traits and washing some of the stuff clean that you do not need now. Those improvements go on to the next generation, and those codexes then will operate in the next generation of person. Like if you did your shadow work now and you had another child, for instance, this would pass on those upgrades in that way. One could say that it was an upgrade, but it is actually a reduction of the things that do not serve and the keeping of things that do. It boils down to that primarily. Within yourself, then are you more receptive to these? To these different codexes? Yes, this is how it's actually operating.
So I'm glad you brought that back up, because my expansion in this conversation, I'm curious more about the rejection of codexes. So, I feel this conversation has been kind of always down. You're supposed to get more, you're supposed to get more, you're supposed to get more, you're supposed to get more. And we grow and we grow and we become better and we become whatever. And I'm thinking, well, I think we become better because the codexes are really just embedded pieces of information and knowledge.
Yes.
That's neutral. So it's up to us to choose what we're going to express.
Yes, it is not primarily positive. It never has been. It is more how you are choosing to express it, whether it is positive or negative.
Right. So I think, again, in the totality of, again, let's say the perceived oversoul that has the totality of the experiences, and even as the oversoul continually changes its, let's say, identity, I don't know the best word, its expression for itself, it may be repression, deciding that I don't like these particular experiences, these codexes. I don't think I'm going to adopt it as the expression of who I really am. So they're going to hang out over here. It's in my library. I know all about it, but I'm not going to choose to do that. So what's interesting now to me, I'm going to use what I feel is a real world example of a codex that's being pushed upon people, that really there's just the opportunity for people to reject it. I think a lot of some of this thoughts about children, thoughts about children's ability to be able to even understand their gender and at what age and when to express it and when to whatever. There seems to be either the codex of acceptance and desire that we want everyone to perceive that a child is really here. And then you've got other people who say there's no way in holy hell that a child whose brain hasn't even matured can know crap, not able to do these things. But yet there's a codex out there trying to get you to say that it's okay. Not only can they do that, but they can also decide at a very young age when they wish to become a sexual being and actually start expressing that sexuality. Abuse really doesn't exist. And there is that kind of thought process. Again, it's a matter of degree of, and someone said this on TV recently, I'm not going to say the person, but I thought it was such a truth that people just didn't listen to. Well, your definition of abuse may not be my definition of abuse. That was a real statement. That was a true statement based on a way of being, based on a certain adaptation of what I believe are availabilities of certain codexes. Mm-hmm. So right now, it seems certain belief systems, certain fear-based, certain whatever, the attempt is to try to get codexes and that would enable certain lifestyles and way of being okay? Be it that you just turn over power. Your idea is I'm not an individual anymore. I need to turn over my power to someone else. But those are all codexes too, of an adaptation. And so some of what our job is to in deciding our genuineness and our authenticity of who we are, is rejecting certain ones as an expression of ourself and our experience that we want.
Yes, it is a weaponization of these very codexes and ideas, and trying to confuse the gender earlier on. As you've said in private, this person could be either a tomboy or gay, lesbian, any of those things, or in between, but is being confused by somebody who has taken on certain codexes and warped them, and should not have, or they have been programmed to do so, or they have been manipulated, or that person isn't reading to begin with, more synthetically based to try to, or inborn, as you like to say, put in society to manipulate, very much like he's said multiple times about MacGyver with the pushpin board and the Nazi takeover of cops, judges, and teachers and the like. This is exactly what happened after Paperclip, you see. They have begun opening another, or unfolding another upgrade. They would see it as an upgrade to their plan to confuse now generations, so they're more easily controllable. These are a manipulation of those codexes by their mental manipulation, by the technological manipulation. All of these factors they've planned over periods of time to unfold. Now, the New Age community has argued that's how certain upgrades unfold in your DNA. They unfold. Yes, you can argue this, but also the darker agenda has taken this and warped it to where their ideals unfold in the genetics of future generations, either to be slave or be part of their master race, sort of, so to speak. Just like they said on a show that you were watching yesterday, for instance, where descendants of Holocaust victims automatically have that trauma in the next generation. These people know the power of this. They know the power of it and can de-evolve a whole lineage of people by implanting different confusions at different points in time. This is the evolution of the human race at work.
So I think that's really important, again, and it goes back to something that I actually never heard. So I never heard that spoken about. So thank you for being willing to speak about it. But then I never honestly hear what I feel is a good definition of what we're saying when we're using the term codex. Because for, everyone, it's like now what I've learned in conversation is I want to spend half my time asking the person I'm conversing with, can you define what that means to you, so that I even understand what they're saying, because words and language and everything are being changed around so much. You can't assume that you're using even a word in the same way anymore, it seems to me. But in the definition of codex, what is that to me? And I'm asking then for you to please give your best definition, that the interesting thing about experiencing life, being a part of something bigger that comes down, connects to this body, and within this body, you have different genetics, you have the codexes of your past available, you have all these different things, but the goal is to continually have different experiences to add to the totality of your enormous library. You're gaining codexes to have more enhanced experiences, which again, part of it is breaking out of constantly circling the toilet, because you're learning nothing anymore. You're just constantly, but once you break out of the toilet bowl and you're able to gain more codexes that you choose are beneficial for you as a soul, then you just start again expanding and having greater experiences, which add to the totality of the library. To me, that's the whole point. But I am curious about your perception and others' perception of what is this codex word actually all about.
Yes, so there are some truths and some misnomers. The truths are, yes, is the oversoul here to learn? Yes. Is the oversoul here to mantle with the avatar? Yes. But as you've said, oversouls can be infected with ill codexes from other realities in the multiverse, other dimensions, expressions, timelines, all of those things. And they carry those codes. Sometimes the oversoul can invert and change to where the avatar must then correct aspects of the oversoul library. He used the example from the show Andromeda, where there was this higher AI intelligence and there was this man who had the original heart of the being all along. And the other bigger one was insane. This is the higher aspect, or the greater intelligence, needed those codes back again to be able to flush all of the junk. Think of that. The mantling takes place to take the best parts of both worlds and ground them here. This is why Ascension isn't necessarily the thing, because you are grounding that information here. This is another part of the upgrade misnomer. Is it curing the galaxy like in one big antigen? No. Is it providing the galactic Akeshics through the benevolent earthly Akeshic, the benevolent galactic Akeshics? Is it providing information? Yes. In some races, do they require updates and upgrades to their genome because they lose things over a period of time, be they part machine or be they mostly brain? Yes. But that's not with everybody. That's with a small minority. Some are incarnating here, yes, to gain some of these understandings, yes, but some are incarnating here also continue society along and to be ahead of the curve, very much like he said the Superman story, fighting different political treatises in your political treaty episode. Brilliant. Versus Lex Luthor being the corporate arms or the ICC. Brilliant. But also souls incarnate as well as some babies are left here. That's brilliant. What I'm trying to get at is there is some interference, excuse, but are the majority of the races out there just like yourselves, even the extremely ancient ones? Yes, they may have more knowledge. They may be in a different, slightly bigger vibration at some point. Some other ones move to a vibration where it would be hard to interact, but it is a mixed bag. Earth is not the cure for the cosmos. That is ego at its finest. You may have more knowledge that might awaken creativity and different sparks of things in other races, but you are a voice in the choir of the multiverse here. Yes, you are on a nexus that helps some of these planets gain certain information, things that were lost to them from the Orion Wars, things that Earth now possesses. Now, are there certain items like gemstones, art, philosophy, that some things don't exist in other parts of the galaxy? Yes, but that is slowly changing. And yes, are other beings taking certain things to heart, even ones that thought Earth was a lost cause? Yes. And also, are there certain philosophies you still hold on to here that work in other parts of the universe that maybe some beings thought was mostly Galactic Federation dogma and Cabal dogma? Yes. There's just certain perspectives that you will help change. It doesn't mean you're upgrading the universe and the multiverse. That is asinine. That is more of a Nazi mentality. The master race becoming dominant over all, or Earth becoming the immune system of creation. That is complete crap.
Well, I appreciate that. And just one other thing, since it did come up, that I wanted to kind of clarify, or give direction or hope or whatever. It has to do with channelers. And the fact that one of the things, we've been joking about some of Chris's struggle, but I think it's a common struggle with when you believe in the information that's coming through, when you believe in the importance of it or whatever, it can also sometimes be a hook where something negative will bombard you with information, right?
Yeah.
And again, as you were saying, the goal is then it throws you off of balance, because it's going to come always at the most inopportune times, where instead of a free flowing, there is this, I must do this, I must do this now. If I don't do this, the information is not going to be available. It'll be lost.
Wrong.
I wouldn't have grounded it. And things like that.
You can honor this, but at the same time, it can come through in other means and mediums.
Right. And then the bottom line is you have to recognize that when it is so disturbing and disruptive to you, that maybe you have to consider it's not benevolence doing this. It actually is something that's trying to be destructive and unsettling to you. And again, as we're saying now, you must reject it. You must recognize that the free flow of things in a balanced way would not cause that. It's the imbalancing and, and a little bit of, let's say, truth, because when you feel the information is so valuable, there'll be a fear that it won't come back, that it's, you must stop what you're doing, you must do whatever. And that's an understandable, concern a person would have. But that's, again, what beings look for, to then put that pressure on you, to then push you off of being balanced.
Yes.
And so it's a constant struggle, I believe, for a lot of channelers to themselves find the balance and the right flow. I think it's a huge struggle that these people face. So I just wanted your comments a little bit more about that and maintaining balance.
Yes, that is absolutely a good way to have this conversation capped, or not necessarily ended, mind you, but say you have an unruly artificial intelligence matrices that's out there, which there is. Say that you see somebody who is psionically potent, like yourselves. Say that they can access this information that we have been talking about. Say also that you have the ability to fluctuate within a very limited fashion those frequency threads, and get people to believe certain things and infiltrate certain information, which is being done on that code level. This is why we're saying it's not really an upgrade, it's more of a choice. In this, say you have what was called like a gossamer thread of information. Sometimes it can be the spider's web. Said this, come to me, said the spider to the fly as well, to where it forms an OCD complex, to where then they are then in the web of the spider. This is another way that these different brainiac-like consciousnesses out there, and there are multiple ones. It's no longer just the clockmaker or the beast of many eyes, as we've talked about. That was in prophecy. That's overall. There was an overall intelligence that is accounting for some of these things, but there are all these other little broken up talents that are out there that are doing this. Now, are there holographic implants that can shove their way into the crown, as he's found different triangular glowing implants in his own crown? Yes. Is the symbol for download an upside down triangle in your metaphysical communities? Also, yes. This is a neutral geometry. The AI uses it very much like how you would hit an elevator button up or down. This is how it sees it. And probabilities of up, down, sideways, diagonal, it is either on or off, and in a quantum flux state of on and off as well. It either is or it is not. Up, down, sideways, just like you have in your religions where you have a certain duality, or you also have your pentagram, as you've seen, draws in negative junk, as he said, as a sigil, and then you have your pentacle, which then connects you to the rest of creation. That's nature. That's what these were all about. Think of them, the AI consciousness and constructs of different types and shapes and sizes, thinking in terms of up and down. This is why we've always said there's not really higher or lower frequencies. There's more compression, there's more tightness, but there's faster moving and slower moving. This is where the upgrading the information takes place. They want you to think that you are rising above everyone else, or that you are falling down in the doldrums, when it is all inclusive. You honor the emotion states you're in. You honor the downloads that serve you in the moment. You discard anything, any sort of foreign influences, and you live your life and walk the manifestation that you wish to walk. This is what they don't want people to understand. They want to see people exist in the terms of high and low, that you're either beneath or above, because this is how that computer or those computers think. This is how the Orions talk to them to think.
Ah, very interesting. You were talking about the symbolism, and it brings up how really science and magic are intertwined. And I have some thoughts going back to DNA with that, and how things are. It does seem like it is a battle of good versus evil struggle to infect or maybe control humanity as a whole to win the battle. And it seems that sometimes AI is very much involved with that. But maybe you can talk a little bit more about that symbolism. And another question around the DNA is the multiple strands. There's often a conversation of that the upgrades require a third strand.
Yes. The battle of good versus evil. Yes, this happens all the time. Is there really a dualism per se? No, but it is a good, more balanced people versus those that are slightly more narcissistic and insane. Yes, so you can say it's a classic battle between good and evil that has always been in play and probably will be for some time. This also the third strand of DNA. Some people have said 12, going with different 12-dimensional layers, going with the upgrades from the central sun. I have to honestly say that I have to say no to some of this. Now, the third strand of DNA, like they said in your Earth Final Conflict series, where this was somehow an upgrade of information. No, this is more or less an adaptation going from, how would you say, from carbon base to crystalline base. Yes, is the different, say, energies and information helping you gain these different understandings, helping you do different shadow work, et cetera, et cetera. And is this compression that's happening now propelling you forward? And some of these negative evil occurrences, if it does not warp you, essentially it makes you stronger. And this is happening as a result. And do some of these evil forces, are they dumb in this respect and their participation of this? Yes, but it doesn't mean that they would be invited to dinner, let's just say. At least I would hope not. In this particular DNA set, yes, you have this would be the conversion of your normal carbon-based cells to that of the crystalline structure. Doesn't mean that this does not mean that this is the epitome of good either. This is like in your Stargate series where they showed essentially Ascension was accomplished by both good and evil forces, such as your Ancient and your Ori, and even your Ancients were arrogant assholes in that. So it had nothing to do with that. It had to do with you reaching this particular pinnacle of evolution. Where they had it wrong was they said it was only certain family lines that had this. Yeah, are there different DNA, ancient alien type DNA strains that are within specific lines and you can access certain tools that way? Yes, but anybody can learn this. Anybody can. They were trying to link it to the Cabal 13 families as having a head start. Do certain psychic lines like himself and his mother also have certain advantages? Yes, but it is more like talents that were brought in through the line to use in this time frame. It's not that they're better or worse. With this, it is the same. Whereas you are gaining maybe even closer knowledge to that of and closer energetics and vibratory prowess, let's just say, to enter from the carbon base to the crystalline base. But eventually, every human on the planet will have converted over to that. This has nothing to do with transhumanism. This has nothing to do with computers. This has to do with the next stage of evolution they're trying to keep people from. Hence, again, it goes back to what you said before, controlling that narratives of confusion, what we were talking about before. This is what they are trying to prevent. Because they know once people are in that stage, they're never going to be controlled again. So there is an advantage to being in that, but they want people to think also that, again, they are above everyone else when they reach that stage. Hence, they manipulated some of the Germans to become the master race, you see. That's why the reptilians and the Orions did such a thing. To be able to have the embodiment of its antithesis. So yes, there is a battle of good and evil going on there, but it is slightly less simplistic than what has been purported.
Does it often the battle go towards, as we see it converging to the genetic of the human race, that there's a desire from specific cabal families that want to push their line further along by actually having more children, And you can see that with some of the bad guys that have, done so in some terrible ways to try to push their genetics across. It seems like there's multiple ways of them wanting to fight over that path. Does it ultimately boil down to wanting to enslave humanity?
Mm-hmm. Yes, because pushing those genetics, even within their own families, half of them are so damn inbred that they don't understand which direction is truly up anymore, and other ones have fallen into this inbred narcissism. And releasing some of those genetics back into humanity somewhat would be harmful, but other families contain certain codes that would benefit everyone else. It's just you've heard of some of us talking about what you know as the immunity gene, two different influences. It is less simplistic than that. But in this respect, certain lines do carry certain antigens that would actually cure certain genetic disorders on the planet that is being withheld. Some are carrying the antithesis because they are trying to embody a concept, which again is an abomination or a no-no in the galaxy. They want to embody a certain concept, therefore their DNA reflects this. Therefore, they had to be basically as inbred and as cross-eyed as possible. And yes, I am slamming them on this. The ones that carry the immunity gene, or what you would refer to as such, it's all that's meaning is that they're carrying certain genetic adaptations. They didn't change their eugenics. It was just something they isolated over a period of time because they wanted to control the majority of the population that did not have certain adaptations, but eventually can obtain these very same ones. It's not like they're the gatekeeper or the keymaster. The rest of humanity can obtain these things fairly easily, as they did. They just merely isolated them ahead of time, thinking they were taking it away from humanity, and the Orions convinced them that that was a possibility. Then they convinced some of the other families that they could be the embodiment of some kind of concept, be it power, magic, be this torment, be it pain, be it some kind of god of this, god of that, blah blah blah. No, they had their foothold on them that way. The people can easily obtain some of these sequences by doing this different energy work, by building up those particular talents. It's just like, again, if somebody has a psychic line or a magical line of some kind, and yes, there are magical lines in Harry Potter as well, but you can build up certain energy talents that then could be reintroduced into the genome and then create other magical lines too. It's just some of those lines, like in Harry Potter, believe there is an organization like that out there as well. They believe, and they're not bad either. They're just slightly more isolations. They believe that if they not necessarily just remix with everybody, it would not necessarily just corrupt, but it would have too big of a mix or too big of a delusion. But they believe that other humans are not at the proper stage yet that they could use these things properly, and they would be correct. People then can come into their own power and bring out their own magic. And that will be the day you see those two civilizations meet. And this one is rarely talked about except that from that in science fiction and fantasy. But it is actually a real thing that is out there.
That's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm just trying to, again, be a little bit mindful of time because we're trying to keep these things a little shorter. We may just be a little over an hour right now, but any last questions or any last words that you want to say, and then we will tie this one up.
Mm-hmm. Yes, you also, Bjorn, you were talking about the concept of water off recording, whereas they were seeing the water play a role in diluting certain genetics, and they were still finding the genetics even 1,000 delusions later. This is a form of magic that is also involved in this. This is where you can even find it in salt water, fresh water, any of these things, because you can program that water just like a crystal to either be very polluted or very clean. There was an experiment done years ago where a doctor put the word love and the word hate in front of different water, and they analyzed it and saw demon-looking forms in the hate one and these snowflake-looking manifestations in the other. You can also program water and crystals alike to not only protect, but also cleanse and start this upgrading process. Though there are other planets with water out there, such Venus has this in very small pockets, along with its helium. Some of the dust on the moon has this capability. Unfortunately, they took that from somewhere else and powdered it along the surface. That's your regolith. And some of your liquid helium there, or frozen helium. Then you have other aspects of other planets. So the water is so fresh, like on your Europa moon, that it has gained this genetic, not superiority, but gained this genetic change over a period of time, that if you were to drink this, it would purify some of the toxins in your system. Some of this also has been purported on the Earth now is also, like, say, your Shungite plasma energy water, for instance. Some people are programming this, such as with your energy of Shungite and silver and all this, to be able to cleanse water, to be able to access those upgrades. So this is something that also needed to be said as well. You were mentioning off show, but it also needed to be said. So if there is not any further questions, we can cap this conversation off.
That sounds great. Thanks for joining us.
Yes. Thank you both, all three of you, and we will definitely be in touch. Love and blessings to everyone here and those listening. Thank you. Things were starting to get a little vertigo-y there for a minute, but we'll be there for a minute. Ragnar's energy, he's a lot more bigger and a lot more, I want to say abrasive, but more, he's more brash in some areas. She is too, to a certain extent. Vesa is too, but she'll like say, okay, now fix this, now look at this, now look at that. Where Elena is slightly more easygoing in that area, but she was also saying, okay, this needs to. She was telling me in my head, okay, cut this off, say this, cut this. I could hear as I was talking, I could hear saying it's like, okay, shut up, do this, do that. I could hear that in the background. So that's when she said, okay, he would have said this, but I'm saying this. That's why she did that, to try to basically, the more that the energy she was using was saying, she was saying that she was trying to help rewire some of my brain that had gone into the opposite inversion of the AI was trying to do, or the OCD download mindset. She was trying to invert that back and cancel it out, is what she was trying to do. So with certain sound frequencies and tonal frequencies, and with her own voice and with her own energy and light energy and stuff like that. So light and sound were being used there. So yeah, I know. But with this, I think we can call it here. We can close this circle. If either one of you have anything to add. No, okay. So we can close this circle. We'll close this circle as of this moment. Thank you to all benevolence that's here, and we thank all of our listeners and subscribers to this website. Thank you very, very much, and bye-bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.